The topics and opinions expressed in the following show are solely those of the host and their guests and not those of W4CY Radio, its employees, or affiliates. We make no recommendations or endorsements for radio show programs, services, or products mentioned on air or on our web. No liability, explicit or implied, shall be extended to W4CY Radio or its employees or affiliates. Any questions or comments should be directed to those show hosts. Thank you for choosing W4CY Radio.
Hey, welcome back to the Geeks, Geezers, and Googlization Show. I'm your host, Ira Wolf, and my co-host, Keith Compagna, is back with us after a week away. Our sponsors are JobVite and Success Performance Solutions. Our guest this week is Hugh Gallagher from the Gallagher Group. We're anxious to talk with Hugh about the what's going on in recruitment these days. You and I met last year about this time at a business event, and we've just met up again for a few breakfast lunches about some collaborating, so excited to share all that. During the conversation, Hugh was talking about a couple of experiences he had working with some organizations lately, and so we're going to get his insights into those, and hopefully it'll help a few of our listeners. Just a reminder, too, we are live. Got a question about the future of work, recruitment, hiring, or just want to share a few comments? Call us at 561-623-9429. But first, I want to welcome Keith back. You were out in sunny California. I don't know how much you saw in California last week.
It was the furthest from sunny. There were 2 minor earthquakes, because apparently when you have a lot of earthquakes, you can have major and minor ones. I don't have earthquakes, so I thought it was entertaining. And it was like a crazy rain windstorm. But the good news is that I was indoors most of the time, and it was a fantastic time to be out there. I got to hang out with the JobViters. There is a fantastic amount, as everybody on this call and those listening out there in the audience knows, there's so much momentum going on in the talent acquisition industry. And just to candidly, our sponsors, JobVite, do a fantastic job. I believe they're doing a fantastic job of really seizing the opportunity. And I could say with absolute certainty, there's a lot of cool stuff that is going to start coming out from Silicon Valley pretty soon.
And I know a lot of it's under the kind of under the radar, or it's still confidential. Any kind of trends or anything you can share?
Well, really, it boils down to the idea that we have, our concept and our belief is that, if you really want to gain the attention of the qualified candidates, you need to start treating them like sales would treat potential new clients, and that includes some sort of a recruitment marketing or branding to that, and then have all that technology be ultra user-friendly on the candidate side, the recruiter side, the hiring manager side, and everybody involved. And what's really cool to me is that I spent time working for Concur Technologies. At the time, they were acquired by SAP, and their concept and what they were able to do with this platform concept versus just making it about expenses. If you know anything about Concur Technologies, not only were they acquired by SAP a few years ago for over $8 billion, they Concur connected business travel with business expense, and then they basically made the technology easy for all the users, made everything visible for everyone involved. And I see these parallels, and I'm super excited to be there. So I'm glad to be back on the podcast, though. I'm sorry I missed it.
Yeah, you missed a good one last week. You'll have to go up and listen to Courtney Kirschbaum, who we talked about job hunt skills, or the Job Hunt School. Yep. So we're there. So a couple other things. Speaking of Courtney, she had a really neat post on LinkedIn this morning, and there was a graphic showing where the cities with the largest job skill shortages, where they had the most job openings. And it was interesting because I pulled up, I just did a quick search after I saw where those cities were, because I recognized, a couple of them, obviously LA, San Francisco, Boston, a lot of the tech centers. And they're also among, the 20 top places to get jobs are also the 20 highest living wages.
Sure.
They're the most expensive cities. So, big correlation there. So, it's like before everybody packs up their U-Haul and decides to drive off to these places, and they're great places to live, Denver, Chicago, but the cost of living there is pretty high. The other thing, I caught this morning. I didn't get to listen to the whole video, but they were talking about Davos. The World Economic Forum is this week, and the IBM CEO, who's Ginny Rometty. The headline caught my eye. Was 100%. Her belief is that we're just at the tip of the iceberg of a skills crisis. And we'll be talking a little bit about that with Hugh. But her statement was 100% of jobs will change. And maybe that's a silly statement, but you and I have talked about that. Of people are fearful that jobs are going to be extinct, and that's probably not going to be the case. But the estimates that I followed, and you heard me say this before, was 65% of jobs will likely be automated, at least partially. She's talking about 100%. So,
well, it makes sense to me. I mean, all things considered, I think everything is changing, and I think that when you say something like 100% of the jobs that we have today will change, I think that's sellable. I think it's marketable because, newsflash, if you compared the way people do their jobs now to the way they did jobs 10 years ago, everything's changed. And I think that has to do with technology. I think the real interesting part is how automation compensates for the gap of skilled workers, right? Because really technology is coming in and doing more on the manufacturing side, on the warehousing side maybe. But when it's that, for lack of better terms, white collar positions or office positions, technology isn't going to be able to maintain the human element of the business world. So to me, that's the exciting part. What's it going to shake out to be like once everyone realizes there just are more jobs than humans?
Yeah. Well, and I think it's also that people who are on autopilot, people who don't believe that they have to improve their skills because they've been doing the job for 20 years. Those are the people that are most at risk. It's not that the jobs will go away, but they have to, pick up those skills, learn how to use the technology. And, the trend is that it's going to be humans plus automation. It's the people that learn how to leverage automation are going to be the most valuable. People who just don't think it's going to happen is going to be scary. And I think you might have seen this on LinkedIn, both you and you. I've been pushing it out there every day. I have a quick survey. It takes about 30 seconds to do. Maybe it doesn't even take that long. It's called "Is Your Job in Jeopardy?" And I'm trying to get quite a few responses. So hopefully there'll be some people on here. But if you go to my website, it's up there, Success Performance Solutions, or just do a search for "Is Your Job in Jeopardy?" survey. Again, it'll take you a real quick time. But it's amazing how many people say their job will not be automated in 5 years, nor do they believe that zero part of their job will be automated. That's scary. And again, I don't know what specifically the jobs are, but I don't know anybody's job who's not going to be at least partially, changed.
Ira, when's the last time I thanked you for bringing me in to be your co-host here? Because I could talk about this kind of stuff, I feel like, forever. I mean, what it really boils down to is that you can't avoid technology. And I think, again, people are maybe viewing these words like change and technology in the same way they view them today, not realizing that they're going to change. Using technology anymore. Who doesn't use technology? One of the most unbelievably effective manner in which the talent acquisition industry is using technology, and it's just about to dip its toe into the water, is text messaging, right?
Oh, yeah.
So right there, for an example, we could say the recruitment industry has changed forever because of using texting software, because people use texting more. So any other job could wind up integrating into anyone's mobile device just based off of the communication element.
And texting's almost old school. It's going to be video. I mean, video is going to be huge. We're just, in fact, I heard this yesterday, and it'll probably be one of my new titles for a presentation. But video, the story is just beginning of how that's going to change things. And when you talk about video, that leads into AR and IR and VR. And that's they said it's been asleep for the last 2 years. And a couple of these places, a couple of the people that are, super high tech, they're talking that it's just going to explode over the next year or so. So where texting was a year or two ago is going to be next year. We'll probably be talking about IR and VR, which is immersive technology and augmented reality. So hey, we sort of teed all this up pretty good. So I want to be able to bring in Hugh. Hugh's been in the business for a while. I'm going to have him share a story. Most people I don't think most people graduate high school, graduate college, and say, I'm going to be a recruiter. But we'll find out how Hugh got into the business and have him join in the conversation. So Hugh, are you still there?
I'm still here.
Good. Hey, thanks for listening to us do our banter, getting caught up. Appreciate you being here. I think it was just maybe a month over a year ago that we met, and I think you were the big winner of my book at that conference. And we got together a few times. So, hey, I sort of insinuated. Maybe I may be wrong, but hey, when you were a kid growing up, when you're high school, and people said, "What are you going to do when you grow up?" Did you say were you going to be a recruiter?
I don't know what I said, but I know I didn't say that.
So how did you got the Gallagher Group? I think that's about 5 years old. Did I say that?
Just 5 years this month. Yep.
Hey, and by the way, happy birthday! I saw that you just had a birthday the other day.
Yep, Saturday. Thank you.
Yeah, good. Hopefully it was a good one. It was a cold one. I know that.
It was indeed, at least the weather wasn't as bad as they were calling for originally.
Yeah, no, that's for sure. So how did you get into, how did you get into this business?
When I graduated from college, it was 1989, which was right before the recession of 1990 hit. And I had taken a job right out of school with a financial services company. Friends of mine from school had worked with them in different geographic locations. I needed a job. I really didn't know what I wanted to do. I had a business degree, and I was always pretty well spoken. I said, okay, I'll go into selling this stuff. And the place was a good company, but the local office was under some turmoil at the time, and I ended up working about 8 months there and went to work adjusting property and casualty claims for an insurance company. And again, another path I didn't think I was taking. I had worked in that role for about 5 years. And during that time period, I met some people, and a buddy of mine was working as a recruiter. He said, "You'd be dynamite at this." He goes, "Let me see if I can get you in with my boss." And at the time, they were coming out of the recession. His boss was a little reluctant to pull the trigger on bringing new people on board. And I ended up hooking up with a gentleman down in the Western Main Line down in Malvern that was looking for an insurance recruiter. And I'm like, well, I want to get into this world. I've worked in the insurance world. I kind of know what these roles do, or at least a decent amount of them do. We went down, interviewed, hit it off, and we got started there.
And that's been how it's been for the last almost 15 years, I guess, or maybe a little longer.
Yeah, I left there in '98, and as I joke, I discovered I didn't have to drive 65 miles to sit at a desk, talk on a phone, and stare at a computer. And but it was a great experience, and it got me a lot of great training and exposure. I mean, I cut my teeth basically recruiting New York, New Jersey, and Philadelphia. And if you don't get your skills up to speed, you get swallowed up in those markets.
And so over that time, I mean, what would you say is from the time you got started to now, if somebody was getting, and now entering the business, what's the biggest change you've seen?
Oh my God. I mean, at the risk of sounding absurd here, when we started, I mean, there really wasn't any internet. So people that are working in this now, and you talk about all these technological advances, there was no internet. I mean, we basically worked, we had computers, but they were loosely connected. No one really had email.
Dial-up. Yeah, you got the old,
Absolutely. Everything came in via fax machine on those curly fax papers or via physical mail, U.S. Postal Service mail. I learned this business from people that were working before they moved to Malvern. They were in downtown Philadelphia. They would interview a candidate and physically take a resume across town to a candidate's office to beat their competitors, or to a client's office to beat their competitors there, because this is a speed game as well as a quality game. So the advancement was huge. When I started working for a company in 2000 here locally in the Valley at Cambridge Search, we had an unbelievable run there. We were so excited we bought our first fax machine. Every time that rang, the sound of money started playing in our ears. And again, you say that to someone starting in this now, what's a fax machine? It's come so far so fast that, it's really immeasurable. And I think that's where you're going with all of these positions, is that whether you realize it or not, technology is going to curve the way you do what you do.
It's somewhat disruptive, right, Ira?
Oh, absolutely. So you work with a lot of different organizations, Hugh. And when we were talking, I mean, you had some stories to share. I guess one of the things that goes through my mind, and I hear this a lot, I think sometimes companies call you or people like yourself, executive recruiters, third-party recruiters, doesn't have to be an executive position, but third-party recruiters, when when they're desperate, and they may, and then, they outsource it, then they decide, hey, I think we're going to bring it in-house. So what's the advantage of an organization calling you versus relying on their internal team? I'm not sure if that's the best way to say that, but that's...
No, I think I understand what you're saying. Most organizations have some form of an internal recruiting function. It may be an individual. It may be a team of folks. It may be part of one individual's role, but they have some sort of internal recruiting function. That said, depending on the organization, they only recruit when they have openings. So they're in touch with the market whenever they have an opening. They're in touch with the market on the roles they're trying to fill whenever they have an opening. So even if you're recruiting pretty regularly in sales, your internal recruiter, if they recruit an IT person every 4 or 5 years, they're not going to really have their finger on the pulse of where to go, who to source for those types of roles when those openings come up in-house. And I think because we do this all day, every day, and we do it across a broad spectrum, it gives us a little bit of an advantage for sure as far as where to turn when these openings arise.
Big advantage. Time, right?
Absolutely. I mean, you can, at the end of the day, Keith, our job, the big moving parts are pretty simple, but this is a very nuanced world, and you can start everything from scratch if you need to, but what's the cost of these positions not being filled? I mean, do the math on that.
100%.
How long do you have to fill this? How much pain is this inflicting on your organization by not filling these roles in a timely manner?
Here in the Lehigh Valley, I was, Hugh, which, by the way, little sidebar here. Hugh, you and I met at
yes,
Bank 7.
Yep, absolutely.
And I met Hugh at a Bank 7 event, and ironically and or entertainingly enough, Bank 7 was is the organization that I'm a part of.
Yeah, you had your webinar last night, didn't you?
Last night on.
Yeah, excellent. Yeah, we'll have to follow up on that as well. Yeah, we haven't had enough time to...
Hugh,
I have a note to view that as well.
I think I did a good job. We'll see. But the point of it is that, the advantage I see with recruiting. What I was getting at was locally here in Lehigh Valley, Pennsylvania region. It's very diverse in terms of supply chain, manufacturing, education, healthcare. There's a fantastic amount of multiple industries that are here. And one of the manufacturers, I'm going to keep their name out of here because I don't know if this is a positive or negative, but they had mentioned that if they can't find a position to fill on the floor in 90 days, it legitimately backs up the entire supply chain of getting their market to their clients, to their customers. So think about that for a second. Healthy, energetic, industrial, and education-based region is still having their overall supply chain being impacted by not being able to hire someone on the floor in 90 days. So you have to have an out. You have to have somebody who can help you do that. And I think that's really where the sweet spot for companies like the Gallagher Group, Hugh, come into play.
No, absolutely, Keith. And where we are, there is such a battle for talent. I'm not even talking skilled talent. I'm just talking people, frankly, that can come in and show up every day, pass a drug screen, do what you're expected to do as part of your daily, quote unquote work. Mm-hmm. That there are companies. We met with a gentleman who was in town from Ohio. They have a local production facility here, and he was really struggling to find people at the rate that they were looking to pay for their folks, to the point where they were looking at possibly moving this facility to somewhere where they might be more competitive. And that's both good news and bad news. That's great to hear, but terrible to hear, because you don't want to hear businesses moving. But it's great that the environment's so competitive and that the hiring is so robust that this might force someone's hand into making such a big, bold move like that.
Yeah, well, I guess it's still going to be a plus or minus, knowing that FedEx facility is going to be getting up and running soon, right? So
absolutely.
I think that the region in general is going to wind up needing more people still.
No question. I mean, they can't build. We're on base out in Upper Macungie. They can't build houses fast enough out here. Right. The only thing they're building faster than houses is warehouses.
It's true, and they've been doing that since I got here in the early 2000s.
And the downstream, I mean, downstream or outstream from that, with Amazon, opening the new corporate center in New York, obviously, 50,000 jobs in the Manhattan area, in New York City area, is a drop in the bucket. But there will be, there'll probably be people moving there, but in exchange, there'll probably be people living here and commuting, because the cost of living in Brooklyn to be able to, work at Amazon is not going to be, obviously they can live across the city, but that kind of migration will have another effect here. And then if you get more people here, then you need more people working for them. So. Good cycle to be in, but it'll be interesting. Hey, one of the things that you mentioned, and I shared this before our call with Keith, and it was interesting because it came from a white paper from another company, but it was JobVite statistics that they were sharing. They talked about statistics. Here's an exact statement. Statistically, every passive candidate that your team recruits is worth more than 18 active candidates applying through a job board, which goes back to what you were just saying. If a company hasn't recruited for IT in 4 or 5 years, or an engineer or another position, I mean, high turnover positions in production and warehouse or nursing or whatever are a little bit different. But if you had a pretty stable workforce, and I think this is something that companies hang their hat on, that they haven't had a lot of turnover. Occasionally they had, 1 or 2 positions open, so their internal staff could take care of that. Now, all of a sudden, they've got people retiring, they got people moving, they're growing, and they're used to posting a job up on Indeed or Career Builder or Monster, and they get overwhelmed with applications. But the success rate, although 50% of all applications come from a job post, only 20% of all positions are filled from that, because most of it's done through sourcing, which is, I believe, what you're talking about.
Oh, it's exactly what I'm speaking about. That's really where I had this dialogue this morning with a gentleman. It was an attorney called in. He needs basically a junior level attorney to come work with him. And he asked what our fees were, and I told him. He said, that seems like a lot. And I said, well, listen, these people this isn't retail. You're not going to a store, picking them up, and walking out with them. With where unemployment is right now, we have to find someone that does what you need him to do for what you will pay him to do it from some other company, and see if he'll make a move or she'll make a move to come join your team. That's what we get paid for. If it was that easy, everyone would be doing it. So yes, you need to be able to source you need to be able to woo, you need to be able to attract and engage these folks to move from company A to company B. That's where the value of passive candidates are. Your passive candidates end up typically being your longer-term employees, your more successful employees. These are folks that are happily employed, doing their job, not actively looking, and now you present them with an opportunity and they say, tell me more. I might be interested in that, something along those lines, those types of buying signals. And you continue the dialogue.
So you've mentioned a couple different industries, and I didn't realize you were even working with some professionals. So when we come back, we're going to take a quick break just in a minute or so. But when we come back, I want to be able to talk to you about which organizations you see as being, I guess where your clients come from and which ones seem to be calling, because at one point you certainly, I'm not sure an attorney or a law firm would ever think of using an outside recruiter, for that. It was usually through networking or through their society or the bar association. So things are changing in that regard. And then since we had as our guest Kevin Grossman 2 weeks ago from the Talent Board, and they ask three key questions all the time. One is, what do candidates want and expect from employers, and what are employers? And the second is, what are employers doing to help meet the candidate needs, and what can they do better? So I want to get your opinion on what you feel organizations can be doing better to be able to attract the people that you're helping them find. We're talking with Hugh Gallagher from the Gallagher Group. We're talking about a lot of things about recruitment, state of recruitment, the state of the economy, why you would use a third-party recruiter when you have an internal team going. So we've been having a great conversation, and we will be back in just about 2 minutes. You're listening to the Geeks, Geezers, and Googlization Show. I'm your host, Ira Wolf, co-host Keith Campagna, and our guest is Hugh Gallagher. Stay right where you are. We'll be back in 2 minutes.
Behind everything you're searching for is something you're actually looking for. When you search with the Real Yellow Pages, you get more than a contractor. You get a whole new curb appeal. It's not just getting directions to a dry cleaner with YP.com. It's rescuing an old favorite from the back of the closet. And it's more than finding a locksmith with YP.com on your mobile. It's getting to sleep in your own bed. Whatever it might be, there are more ways to search and more ways to find exactly what you're looking for with the Real Yellow Pages, YP.com, and YP.com on your mobile, only from AT&T.
What's up, everyone? This is Keith from the Geeks, Geezers, and Googlization Show, powered by JobVite. JobVite knows career paths are made by people, not by open job requisitions. JobVite's platform ties recruitment marketing directly to applicant tracking and onboarding, creating continuous candidate engagement that effectively connects recruiters with qualified passive candidates. Used by over 50,000 recruiters placing over 1 million jobs, JobVite's platform impacts every company in every industry. Check us out at jobvite.com.
Listen carefully. Up to 9 out of 10 job candidates visiting your company career page leave before completing an application. You heard that right. 90% of candidates who want to apply for a job at your company don't. That's just plain crazy, especially in today's tight labor market. Candidate experience matters. Stop turning candidates away. Let Success Performance Solutions help. Call us at 800-803-4303 or register at successperformancesolutions.com/W4CY. Schedule a no-obligation consultation and get special access to insider tips to recruit faster and hire smarter.
Hey, welcome back to the Geeks, Geezers, and Googlization Show. I'm your host, Ira Wolf, with my co-host, Keith Campagna, and our special guest today is Hugh Gallagher from the Gallagher Group. Hey, Hugh, when we left off, we were talking, I said we were going to talk about the companies, the organizations that seem to be struggling the most. You seem to be getting calls from, I guess, types of businesses that just a few years ago would never think about hiring an outside recruiter other than maybe for a top position. But you had mentioned that you got a call earlier, I don't know if it was this morning or just recently, for even a junior attorney. You're getting calls from people. What type of businesses? What's their issue? Why are they calling you?
I mean, in short, it's because most people that are any good that want work are working. So you need to find someone that's going to be able to attract passive candidates for you. And I think, the run an ad, post a job, whatever you want to call it, the old school was newspaper, modern day it's any variety of job boards. It's certainly still effective, and it works for a large majority of positions. But the more skilled you get, those people aren't responding to ads, or they may not be actively looking at ads. Even if there would be an ad there that might catch their eye, they may not be looking. So you need someone that's going to go out into the world and grab these people and say, hey, you ever think about this? Would something like this be interesting to you? Do you know someone I should be speaking with that might benefit from hearing about an opportunity like that? Those type of engagement questions, I think, is where we really bring some value to organizations and why folks reach out to us. From a business standpoint, I mean, we're doing work across the spectrum. Financial services firms. We've got some. We're working on some stuff up in New York City right now. Large commercial construction companies. Again, at the management levels, these are six-figure jobs, but they're still construction jobs. Locally, we have stuff in the insurance field. We've done a ton of stuff in healthcare. I've done probably more sales positions over my career than anything else. So, I mean, it's been a huge cross-section: accounting, IT, purchasing, manufacturing, management. I mean, these are the areas where talent's not really walking the street. You have to go get it and see if you can move it from A to B. And I think to the point you were making earlier, Ira, and I'll land the plane here quickly, but to the point you were making earlier, companies have to do something that once we put these candidates in front of them, they're now treating them like a customer. They're now engaging them better and more effectively than they ever had previously.
Hugh, let me ask you, let's go with that, because that's what I was going to ask you about prior to the break. What is it that you're seeing the employers offering in terms of employment opportunities? I'm sure that you've seen it where HVAC companies, I've seen billboards with $5,000, maybe $7,000 signing bonuses. How do you see the way that employer groups have changed the manner in which they're approaching this, overutilized talent marketplace?
Yeah, I mean, it's they're trying to hit it from any angle they can, Keith. There's certainly a whole lot of organizations for all sorts of different types of positions are doing sign-on bonuses for sure. Some are trying to offer as many perks. I mean, again, with the title here, having Googleization as a part of it, I don't want to use Google as an example. We don't see that here in the Lehigh Valley. But the perks that are afforded to folks, flex time, flexible time off, extra benefits. Benefits have gotten so expensive. Healthcare has gotten so expensive that there needs to be trade-offs for things. I was doing work with a client of mine about a year and a half ago, and I was doing an internal interview with one of their staff members. I said, "What do you like best about working here?" And he said, "The time off I get." And I was kind of blown away by that. It was like the thing you like the best is the time you're not here. And as silly as that sounds, it's why he kept coming back, because he wasn't there for the money. And yes, the job was fulfilling to him, but they give a little more attractive time off package. Each organization, I'm finding, has to find something compelling about them to sell. And I think they're doing a generally better job at it overall, but in the same token, it's probably easier for me to point out now who's doing what poorly rather than who's doing what well, because this is evolving, as you suggested, Keith.
It really is, and the reason why I asked the question is because I have a deep down curiosity, because from my position, and I'll say that has everything to do with what I'm doing with JobVite. right now there's the supply and demand issue in terms of more jobs and fewer and less employees to fill those jobs across the board. So in order to start like down the road, I sincerely believe that due to that gap, companies are going to start having to get what we would consider by today's standards well outside of the box. I know in healthcare, there's this concept of, self-scheduling, and it's progressive, but at some point, some very capable nurse or some very capable, professional who's maybe not tied to a surgery schedule will be able to say, I'm going to work these hours, and based off of my agreement, I'm required to work these many hours at this time. Like, it just seems like that's an example of what could happen in one industry, whereas every other industry is going to have to come up with ideas to attract talent because there's not going to be any other way.
No question. We're there now in certain sectors of healthcare. We have a personal friend of ours that's a nurse anesthetist, and she basically tells the people she works with, I'm available these hours. She'll schedule herself for the week, and she has, she works on surgery, so I'll be here for this one, and I won't be here this day, but this day you can book me this hour to this hour. So yeah, they're getting really creative. I mean, I think the one thing I ask as part of what we do when we start engaging a client, a new company with a search, is why is our passive candidate, why is someone that's happily and gainfully employed elsewhere going to leave that job and come work for you? And they better have a pretty compelling answer. I don't care what it is, but I want to know, how are you selling you? How are you presenting this opportunity to someone coming in the door? Because if it sounds choppy to me, it's really not going to sound good to someone else.
Right. And entertainingly enough for me, last night, that webinar that I did, part of it towards the end really did have everything to do with the fact that the other side of that equation is the employee. And they have a substantial opportunity, at least in my humble opinion, they have a substantial opportunity to ask for more, right? You almost want to, I could see from someone in your position, you don't necessarily want to get your client to have to pay more. But I would suggest that 99 out of 100 times, if the company would agree that the individual is worth it, that they will put in the extra effort, the extra perk, the extra bonus. And part of my webinar was to address that on the employee individual side, because there's such an opportunity here for you to go after the job that you want and find the company that you want to work for. It's crazy out there anymore.
So
no question. Go ahead.
Go ahead. No, you go ahead.
I was just going to say the pendulum has absolutely shifted greatly in the last 5 years from it being an employer-driven market to an employee-driven market. No question about that.
So one of the things, and we got about 5 minutes here to kind of wrap up where things are going. It, as I told you in the beginning, it goes pretty fast. I think one of the best ways for a company to understand why they might use a recruiter like you, a third-party recruiter, is that it takes a lot of work. So when you get that call from the construction company, you're going to call from the law firm, and they're looking for somebody, what are the steps you go through to research that position, to source that position? Can you give us a couple of bullet points?
They're going to be quick bullets, but sure. I mean, really, the first thing we have to understand is, what are you looking for? What is going to work? When you look at a candidate, everyone has a job description. Most organizations over maybe 20 employees, job descriptions are written in what I refer to as HR speak, which really doesn't play well with the general public, but at least it gives all the bullets of what they need. But I will ask them, can you walk me through here and let's break down what are the must-haves and what are the nice-to-haves. Because sometimes you look at a laundry list of quote-unquote requirements on a piece of paper. Now you have to separate what's important and what's mandatory. And that's huge. I like to know culturally, what are we looking at? Who's going to fit here? Who has worked? What kind of background? What type of personality? What type of management style do you have? What type of candidate has worked well for you? Are there companies that you've hired from previously that have been a good experience or a bad experience? what has been your experience in this space so that I know, and I'm not fighting City Hall. I have a certain client of mine that works in the environmental space, and they've told me we've hired 3 or 4 people from XYZ company. They just, for whatever reason, don't work out with us. Well, I'm not going to chase those people down, even though on paper they may be good fits. My client's experience has been, this doesn't work out for us in the end, and we're not going to invest in this.
So if you're working in it, so let's say you've done that work, this is a new client, maybe an industry you're not doing a ton of work in, you don't have for those who understand what a Rolodex is, or you don't have a big database, of lawyers or construction people. So in the past, people just got on the phone and started calling people. We talked about a couple technologies today, text, video, email, phone call. Are you finding, so a lot of it's just a lot of legwork. It's just time. You're reaching out, you're trying to identify those people, calling them. If they're not interested, do they know somebody who is? Have you found, what have you found to be most successful? Is it an email? Is it a phone call? Is it a text?
I think this is always going to be a phone job, but people have, gotten savvy and they hide behind their phones. They hide behind email. So you do have to be somewhat sophisticated with how you approach them. We've, in the last 2 years, texted far more people than I ever had or ever thought I would be. I think we've kind of jumped past the, it's inappropriate to text someone. Now, if someone says it's okay, if my buddy Steve referred someone to me, I say, hey, this is Hugh. Steve said it's okay to reach out to you. Want to pick your brain about XYZ opportunity. Can you give me a call? Here's my number. I'm not saying it greatly increases the odds, but it's another opportunity to touch them that as technology evolves and people's ability to avoid the technology evolves, you need to continue to work on ways where you're going to be able to connect and engage these individuals.
You're just curious because I'm doing a presentation. I think I might have shared it on last week's show or 2 weeks ago at the SHRM Talent Conference in Nashville. It's kind of a TED Talk, and the topic's on video. So are you guys doing it? Are you using video at all?
We're not. Our clients do occasionally, but again, I think that's going to increase over time. I think where it's going to sit, where I think it's going to grab more traction, is going to be perhaps the initial, what's now an initial phone screen, maybe with someone in HR recruiting from an internal team. That may be more of a video call. Okay. Again, people like to see, do they look the part? Do they act the part?
Right.
What are their nonverbal cues looking like? And you can absolutely tell more seeing someone you're speaking with than not seeing someone you're speaking with.
So it's evolving. So in a real quick time, maybe 60 seconds or so, what can an employer do to help you, I guess, attract that client? So if they're going to reach out to you, what should they be doing to get ready for that?
Have what they're looking for clearly defined. Sometimes, and you don't want to use the term tire kicking, but sometimes they know they need someone, but they're not exactly sure where they see this role going. Or they're used to the roles of 5-6 years ago where you would hire someone and everyone was doing maybe a job and a half, a job and 2/3. Now that they're down to just doing one person's job again, how are we defining that? What are you looking for and what must you have to succeed in this? I think is really, really clear. And they've got to act quickly once people are presented to them because time kills deals. And especially in this environment right now, if you don't turn over on an interesting candidate quickly, you're going to lose them to someone else.
Yeah, I'm kind of surprised you didn't bring that up earlier because time and time again you hear, the frustration from recruiters, staffing companies, and even internally from HR that, hiring people want those positions filled quickly, but then they tend to, somebody's on vacation, they got FMLA, they're busy, they got a production schedule, and the good talent's just not waiting. For sure.
Absolutely.
So I got one quick question for you. Hopefully we can have you back. This conversation can go on forever. So hopefully we'll just bring you back another time.
That'd be great.
Next year, we're doing the same thing, same time, same place. what do you think we're going to be talking about? What's the one headline or what's the one trend that you think is going to be different now than it is now?
I think, I don't know how much different. I think it may be a continuation of where we're at, is that, we're looking at a real tightening in the labor market. When the recession hit 10 years ago, a lot of baby boomers put their retirements off, and that could only be done for so long. And what we're finding is, yes, technology and increased efficiency is taking the place of some folks. But we're looking at labor shortages for as far as the eye can see, unless something tragically and unpredictably goes wrong. It's going to get tighter and tighter. So the skills that recruiters are going to need and the perks and the things that companies are using to attract talent are all going to have to sharpen and increase over the next year.
Fantastic, Hugh. Thank you.
That kind of wraps. Yeah, that's going to take us pretty close to the end here. I want to thank. You've been listening to the Geeks, Geezers, and Googlization show. We've been talking with Hugh Gallagher from the Gallagher Group. Hugh, how can anyone get a hold of you if they want to chat with you, retain you, ask you a question? What's the best way?
Our office line is 610-295-5171, and you can reach me at Hugh, H-U-G-H, at GallagherGroup.us.
.us, that's important. Not .com, .us.
Absolutely.
So, absolutely. And I know you're on LinkedIn and you're on Twitter, so people can reach out in multiple ways there. So, hey, well, I want to thank you again, and I really appreciate it. The time went really fast. It was a great conversation. I know you and I will be connecting in the next, pretty soon. We're talking about doing a program together and hopefully looking at some other collaborations. So, thanks very much. Appreciate your time.
Thank you. I really appreciate it, guys.
Good talking to you again, Hugh.
So, Keith, we're kind of at the end of the show again. It went super fast. Great guest. Next week, we've got Karen Young. Karen's the CEO of HR Resolutions. We sort of tipped on that today as far as her topic's going to be job descriptions. I've talked about that before. You can't copy and paste the job description and post it up on a job board and expect to get anybody to apply. So there's a lot of things that we're going to be talking to Karen and picking her brain a little bit about that. She's written a book. I think she's on the road to writing a second book, as well. So she'll be joining us next week. Just a reminder, if you go up to my website, I've got the Google My Business ebook, free download. It's an opportunity a lot of people are missing. And I just found out that Google's actually using Google My Business, the knowledge graph. That's that information about your website in rankings for Google for Jobs. So it's getting complicated. So we have that. I know we've got the 2018 JobVite recruiting benchmark report, and we need to update that one, I guess, with the, what was the most recent one?
Recruiter Nation.
Recruiter Nation, yeah. So we gotta get that one up as well. Remember, everyone, we rebroadcast this on iHeartRadio. You can download the podcast. We're on iTunes now. We're on a number of
Spotify yet?
I don't believe it's on there. We got to check with Dee. I know that it takes some time to get all those listed, but we're hoping to be on almost 35 different ones, and that's the goal for 2019. So, any final words, Keith?
Well, to once real quick, I love the conversation with you, and folks, if you're paying attention and listening to us routinely, I'm getting a lot of great experiences both in the trenches of the recruiting world, and which ultimately ties into the future of work, as well as some of the other guests that we've had that have been just simply fantastic in their theoretical long views in terms of the way things are working out. And just to go back to something you said, in terms of unless something unfortunate happens to the economy, that's already starting to come into play. Not that something unfortunate is going to happen, but people are saying that even if something came into the economy and it harmed us, we'd still have a very tight labor market. So we'll talk more.
Yeah,
next
absolutely, absolutely. I'm getting the signal here that we're
Time to go.
We're probably past the out of time. So I want to thank everybody again. I want to thank you, Gallagher, for being our guest today. I want to thank everybody who's listening on here or our podcast. Please let us know how we're doing. If you're interested in being a guest or a sponsor or just sharing a few thoughts, make sure you call in or connect with Keith or me on LinkedIn and Twitter. You can get to our show at the GGG show.live. We're on W4CY.com. You can also get to us that way. Don't forget to download the apps, the podcasts, and listen to us and share the show with your friends, neighbors, colleagues, coworkers. Until next Wednesday, 1 p.m. This is Ira Wolf, Keith Compagna from the Geeks, Geezers, and Googleization Show. Don't let the shift hit your plans.